The desert was a furnace that afternoon, a flat, shimmering expanse where heat waves danced like ghosts and the sky had been bleached to a merciless white blue. And Jed Malone, a rancher whose nearest neighbor was a full day's ride away, was returning from town with a sack of feed over his saddle, mind half asleep from the monotony of the trail, when his old Mustang gelding snorted and stopped so suddenly Jed had to grab the horn to keep from pitching forward. The horse's ears were rigid, nostrils flaring toward the dry creek bed below, and Jed, a man who'd learned to trust the instincts of an animal that had survived more winters and ambushes than most men, eased his Winchester out of the scabbard and dismounted, moving slow, scanning for movement in the pockets of shadow between sun-baked rocks. That was when he saw it, a shape sprawled in the dust, half hidden under a filthy, torn blanket, vultures wheeling low above it in hungry circles, their shadows sliding across the ground like black stains. At first he thought it was just another carcass, maybe a coyote or a stray calf that wandered too far from water. But then the shape twitched, a jerky, almost unwilling movement, and Jed's pace quickened. When he reached it, the stench of sweat, blood, and sunburn hit him hard, and with the tip of his rifle he hooked the edge of the blanket back to reveal not an animal, but a young woman, skin blistered and peeling from the sun, lips cracked and bleeding, her long black hair matted with dust and dark clots of dried blood. She looked at him with eyes so dry and glazed over he wasn't sure she was seeing him at all. And her voice, no louder than a breath, rasped, "They left me for the vultures," before her head rolled weakly to the side. She was Apache, or part, but her dress was calico, torn to ribbons, and her bare feet were swollen and bleeding, the ankles and wrists raw and scabbed from rope burns. Jed didn't waste time asking who they were. Questions could wait until she had more than minutes left to live. So he slid his arms beneath her, startled at how light she was, lifted her against his chest, and carried her back to his horse, laying her across the saddle in front of him before swinging up behind. With the sun sinking like a bloody coin into the jagged hills, he rode hard for the ranch, every bounce of the trail threatening to jar her last breath from her lungs, her head lolling limply against his chest except for the occasional twitch of pain. By the time they reached his homestead, the light was fading and the wind had cooled just enough to raise gooseflesh on her scorched skin. He carried her inside, set her gently on his bed, and went straight for the water barrel, soaking a rag and pressing it to her lips until she sucked at it weakly, the sound desperate and small. He coaxed a little more into her before she coughed and sputtered, and only then did he fetch the small tin of salve for the burns on her face and shoulders. In the lamplight, the full picture of her condition was worse: bruises along her ribs and hips, welts on her back, a split at the corner of her mouth. The marks of men who'd used her hard before deciding she wasn't worth keeping alive. For hours, Jed tended her, washing away layers of grime, wrapping wounds, spooning her thin broth, and each time her eyes fluttered open, there was that same startled, suspicious flicker, like she couldn't quite believe he wasn't there to hurt her. By dawn, she was sleeping more steadily, her breathing deeper, and Jed stepped outside to watch the sunrise paint the desert gold, thinking of the vultures and the kind of men who'd leave a woman for them. When she woke mid-morning, she could speak more, though her voice was still hoarse. Her name was Nita, she said. And she'd been taken weeks ago when the wagon she traveled with was ambushed by the Whitlock brothers, a gang of 4 who made a living robbing, killing, and worse. They'd argued over what to do with her. Some wanted to sell her south into the hands of men who'd pay for exotic stock. Others just wanted to break her. But in the end they'd tied her hands, thrown her over a horse, and ridden deep into the desert before dumping her in the dry creek bed under a blanket. saying the sun would finish what they started. She remembered lying there for what felt like days, too weak to crawl, hearing the wingbeats of the vultures grow closer, their shadows passing over her again and again, until she stopped caring whether they came for her. Jed listened in silence, the muscles in his jaw tightening with each detail, and when she'd finished, he told her she was safe now, though they both knew safety in that land was something a man had to defend every day. Over the next 3 days, she regained enough strength to walk a little, sitting on the porch with a blanket around her shoulders, eyes scanning the horizon as if expecting the Whitlocks to ride up any moment. On the 4th morning, Jed saw them, 4 riders on the southern ridge, rifles glinting in the early sun. Not moving closer, not leaving, just watching. That night he loaded every rifle and pistol he owned, laying them out on the table, and in the morning they came, the Whitlocks riding in bold as if the land belonged to them, their leader grinning with yellow teeth as he called out that they'd come for the half-breed, and that Jed could make it easy or hard. Jed's answer was a shot from the Winchester that dropped the man to his left before the others even had their guns up, and then the air was filled with the roar of gunfire and the smell of powder. Jed took cover by the well, firing steady, dropping another in the dirt while Nita, inside, clutched the revolver he'd given her. When it was over, 3 Whitlocks lay still and the last was riding hell for leather for the hills, his curses carrying back on the wind. Jed stood for a long moment, chest heaving, before turning to see Nita in the doorway, eyes wide, not with fear but something deeper, disbelief, perhaps, that someone had stood between her and death. In the weeks that followed, the threat of more trouble lingered, but so did something else. A quiet understanding between them, the kind born when one soul pulls another back from the edge. And if you believe in grit, in standing your ground when the vultures circle and the odds are long, then stick around. Subscribe to this channel, because out here on the frontier, there are more battles to fight, more wrongs to right, and more souls worth saving before the sun goes down for good.